There's a special kind of very specific episode that looks dense on paper but feels strangely airless while you're watching it. Portals, royal succession, pre-command pressure, a cadet committing fraud, romantic tension still unresolved from a coma cliffhanger, and all the ingredients are here. And somehow none of them are allowed to fully land. Episode 7, Zeine, is the hour where Starfleet Academy quietly reveals what it believes about leadership. And I don't think it likes the answer. What's up, my know-it-alls? Okay, let's get some context. We open with a giant text card mid-semester, a month later. Not immediately, that threw me. Last week ended with Terima in a coma, Caleb emotionally wrecked, and the Academy really destabilized. At least that's what should have happened. And that episode trusted fallout. It trusted discomfort. This week jumps ahead. All Worlds Day, a new holiday. Cadets go home. We split the cast up. Genesis is pushed toward the pre-command track under the shadow of her admiral father, or at least that's what we're led to believe. Darum's pulled through what looks like some sort of a violent abduction portal, which turned out to be a royal ritual. He's a prince. His succession timeline has been accelerated due to sort of a health back thing going on. Jaden follows him impulsively, ultimately becomes his Zeine, his best man. Caleb stays at the Academy with and Genesis, and they sort of start a holiday sort of rebellion thing that escalates way into something really serious. Got it? Okay, that's the grid. Now let's slow down. The most important storyline in this episode is Genesis. Not because it has the most spectacle, because it has the most moral consequence. That's a great way to put it. She finds out that her letters of recommendation originally contained criticisms. She edited them before submission, and the edit ultimately helped put her on the path for the pre-command nomination. And that's already really ethically gray. Then she finds out the criticisms still exist in the system. And this is where the episode could have gone somewhere dangerous. Instead of confronting the insecurity, instead of asking whether she deserves command, instead of, sitting in the discomfort of not measuring up, she escalates. She lies to Caleb to get his help in order to break onto the bridge. She steals a programmable matter key that would give her access to all kinds of databases. I don't mean metaphorically, I mean physically. She steals it. She admits to wanting to break into a secure database, again, with Caleb's help. She wants to override protocols. She wants to alter official records inside the command track pipeline. That's fraud, boys and girls, inside Starfleet. This isn't stealing exam answers. It's manipulating the institutional memory that determines who leads ships. Are we given the opportunity to live in the repercussions of those decisions? How do you think all those revelations are paced? Quick. The beats move fast. We get the discovery, the rationalization, Caleb nudging her, the infiltration, the system access, the change, the almost getaway. There is no still moment where she hesitates long enough for us to really feel the moral weight of the choice. There's no extended silence, no held close-up where you see the doubt. It plays like escalation in a caper. Then Reno catches them on the bridge.
I thought I left my pad in here, but nope, just a couple of cadets in the deepest of
Later, Ake removes the nomination.
I will not be nominating you for pre-command.
Yes, Chancellor.
Reno's confrontation has energy, but it's Ake who ultimately delivers that consequence, that institutional consequence, if you will. And even that consequence is contained. Administrative, procedural. Her nomination's revoked. The scene moves on. But if Genesis is willing to manipulate official records because she feels like she doesn't belong, that's way more than insecurity. That's command rot at the root. So where's the existential reckoning? Where is Ake pressing her not just on the rule break, but on the mindset? Where's the conversation about whether someone who needs the system to lie for them is even fit to lead? The episode, it does not sit there. It corrects and proceeds. And that's where the caution shows. Not Darum. On paper, this should have been the spine. Let's be real. Like, seriously. Darren's he's a prince. His father, the fiance's father's health and all that stuff accelerates succession. He's ultimately pulled into sort of home through a portal that looks a lot like an abduction. That whole staging is pretty intense. Jaden, of course, runs in and saves him because there's urgency. Then we contextualize it as a ritual. That's not something crazy to Star Trek. It's an arranged marriage. It's political stability. It's expectation. We've seen those things before. And that's a full A-plot. The tension between Monarchy and Starfleet is rich territory. Chosen identity versus inherited obligation. But the episode, it doesn't really want to stay it long enough. The rhythm becomes really predictable at that point. Darum, tension spikes. Cut. Genesis and Caleb, over at the Academy, doing their thing. Cut. The wedding preparations. Cut. Holiday hijinks. Cut. You can feel the rotation. Just when Darum's internal conflict starts to really build, we leave him. It never accumulates. Now you have the whole wedding speech thing. Let's take a look at that for a second. Let's break it down, but I need to break that down as an editor. Jaden begins speaking about who Darum has become at Starfleet. He talks about growth, about the man that he's becoming. On paper, this is where the internal shift should happen. But the camera keeps cutting to the bride. And every time we cut to her, it's a push-in. Now, not even once, multiple times. The framing tightens incrementally. The music begins to cue emotional change before the words earn it. The push-ins are doing narrative signaling. It's really the episode saying, shh, watch her. She's going to decide something. If the performance between Jaden and Darum could carry that shift, you hold on them. You let the silence between the lines breathe. You let Darum's face register realization. Instead, the edit underlines the outcome. And here's the uncomfortable question. If you can't hold on the actor in that moment, that's not just an editorial choice. That's either performance not tracking, direction not trusting stillness, or rehearsal not locking the beat. It's telegraphing is often a symptom. It's not a disease. Then the bride annuls the marriage entirely. It's this sort of, it's an empowering concept, I guess, or at least in concept. But I wasn't surprised because the camera had been preparing me for it the entire time. And when I'm prepared by staging instead of emotion, the reveal lands flat. Now, stack that next to Genesis. Genesis commits fraud. Darum abandons the throne. Caleb is still bleeding trauma from Tarima's coma into bad judgment. These are all volatile ingredients. The right ingredients, I would argue, and yet none of them destabilize the hour. Caleb's trauma becomes texture rather than rupture. Darum's monarchy becomes ceremony rather than fracture. Genesis's fraud becomes administrative correction rather than sort of a moral crisis. Everything resolves into forward motion. Not a thing cracks down. And this is where I felt it personally. During the wedding speech, I leaned back. Not because it was bad, because I knew where it was going. And that's really the moment that you lose tension. When you stop leaning in and start observing construction, I don't know, I want to say boredom, but it's not. I think it's more like distrust. Yeah, that's a better word, distrust. There you go. And if Genesis can manipulate institutional records and then the consequence is ultimately temporary nomination loss, the Academy feels like brand maintenance instead of really a crucible. If Durham can sort of walk away from the monarchy without sustained emotional fallout, monarchy feels like set dressing. And I think if trauma can convert into holiday flirtation energy within an episode, that danger feels cosmetic. And that's not writing, sort of a writing accident. That's worldview management. And that's really why this episode feels, I don't know, cautious? So, but yeah, there you go. Now you know. And if knowing's half the battle, you're halfway to being a know-it-all yourself. So what is the Neural Index for Starfleet Academy Episode 7, Zeine? Look, man, it's going to be a 5 out of 10 for me. Because this episode was an opportunity to integrate leadership, interrogate it anyway, at its root, and it blinked. It cut instead of holding. It corrected instead of confronting. It stabilized instead of destabilizing, which is what is supposed to happen. I think the ideas are strong and the execution is really careful, and careful's not what this franchise built its mythology on. Careful is not what should have happened after last week's amazing episode. Careful was the last thing this episode needed to be. What's funny is all the ingredients that I mentioned last week, they gave us those things. Ake questioning herself and everybody having to deal with and live with the aftermath. And then they just shoved it aside, shoved it onward, shoved it in, just kept going. It's like, okay, see all those things you're feeling? Yeah, just tamp those down and shove it forward. And I think that momentum really hurt this week's episode. Would love to hear your thoughts. Tell me seriously, am I crazy? Did I get it wrong? This, for me, is a disappointment. Not because, be honest, not because I expected a whole lot different, but because last week's episode was such a shining example of what the series could be if it just got out of its own way. Now, I know they've already filmed season 2, and we're supposed to be looking forward to that, and I'm here for it, and we'll see. We'll see. I would very much love to know. I'd love to see what next year, because I'm already looking to next year, because at the end of the day, their next season, because this season doesn't look like it's going to really amount to much at this point. You have 3 more episodes to go, and we'll see what they do, whether they're going to resolve anything or do anything big with it. I may or may not do a review for those next couple episodes. I may just save my thoughts until the very end, just to kind of see where it all lands, mainly because I'm a little gun shy now. So, all right, guys, I'll talk to you again next week. Never forget, everyone loves a know-it-all. Bye, guys.